Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is the last of our sector feats on our new series covering Conquest 15. Today's Sector 5 and a few of the global feats. The basic structure, we'll be looking at the data disk, the progress that we made on the Sector 5 feats and the global feats, and the squads that I was utilizing on the boss nodes as well as the feats. With data disks, I don't believe there's really any major changes. I think I upgraded Undercover. I may have had a green one of those before. Actually, I think I had a protection mod in here, disk, and I swapped it out for the Undercover. That's really the only change from the last sector, and even Sector 3 to a certain extent, just because we didn't really get great options. I do have one big regret though, and that is skipping out on Blindside in Sector 1. I think it showed up twice. It's a disc that I love, particularly paired with like Stacking Fervor and with Booming Voice, which we get from the global feats. It's very powerful, especially with lower gear characters where the stacking exposes makes it really easy to get some of those defeat feats, especially with certain characters that you might have at 3 stars like Padawan and Master Qui-Gon, even though those are win feats, not defeat feats, but functionally it makes those easier. At our first fork, this is where we get Stacking Offense, Honed, and Convor's Agility. Stacking Offense isn't great, but I prefer Stacking Fervor. I mean, it is okay, but I prefer Stacking Fervor. The Convor's is interesting because it's at a blue, but you really want to build up a certain set of discs to exploit that, and then you can see another Convor's down below, but really it's junk. So here we grab, I grab the Convor's just because it's the best available, but I'm unlikely to touch it. I don't have the set of discs built out for it. At the Crossroads, these are okay. Like we have the blue Undercover here, other Leaders Resolve, Ruthless Swiftness, those are bad, and down below we have a Republic Resolve, but we already have one of those. It's also very specific, squad specific, and this is where I go with Undercover. It being only a 1 dot and a blue makes it a lot easier to put into different squads, and it does make more survivable characters like Padawan, Obi-Wan, and Master Qui-Gon. So certain feats with unideal characters, this does help, which does apply to Conquest 15. At the second fork, I had the options of going with some stuff that we already had, like Solid Intel we have in blue, but better, and then Leaders Resolve we already have. So everything here is redundant, so I just kind of grab something that I think stacks more interestingly, which is why I grab a Solid Intel, but not really building a turn meter set, so not helpful. After the final boss, same stuff. We have that already in the inventory. It doesn't help. Same thought process, looking for what we can stack, so Unstable Decelerator. With our feat progress, as you can see, we've made some meaningful progress now that we are done with Sector 5. We can afford to spend a little bit more energy in this area. Captain Rex would have been nice to finish that during Sector 5 since we have the Phoenix squads as a feat, but there were just non-optimal squads that we were going up against on the nodes, so we made progress but couldn't complete it. Master Qui-Gon and Padawan Obi-Wan, we did make some meaningful progress. We used a number of squads during Sector 5 to make progress on that feat. We will break those down. Dark Trooper Moff Gideon, that wasn't really touched today, although I did make a little progress after the end of Sector 5, and I did start working on this weird one with Count Dooku. We'll touch on that. You can look at the timestamps for some of these. Same deal with Gungans. Now that we're done with the sector feats, we're mostly done with the sector feats, we are now taking a look at some of these other ones. But as always, my goal is to first finish the sectors, see what kind of data disks we have, and then start tackling these global feats in earnest. With our Sector 5 feats, we're done with 2. You can see Master Qui-Gon and Qui-Gon surviving. We got 6. Good amount of progress, need a little bit more, and then Phoenix characters. We got most of the way there, but we need a couple more battles. I used them where the nodes made sense, but most of the nodes didn't. And in terms of our efficiency, you can see we were being very efficient as we went through this, with dropping this node here with the Ewoks. Ewoks are 1 out of 3. Part of that is stamina, and part of it is a lot of the squads that we were limited, or at least I was attempting to limit myself to during this sector, are feats that are heavy with assists, which are going to do poorly up against Ewoks. I don't even remember what I used up against them. Then this node here with Kenobi, I believe this may have been stamina related, but it's also because I was using squads like Phoenix and Master Qui-Gon, so that one looks like we dropped a couple battles. Otherwise, it's an easy node, just not with the characters I was using the moment. And we have Separatists and Rex here. Same thing. Like I think this one was definitely Phoenix. Like we won the node, but I lost 3 characters. In Sector 5, we were using this Phoenix squad. I would sometimes swap out Sabine for Kanan, who I have at Relics, or sometimes Zeb. I was kind of spreading the stamina depletion between those 2 characters. I like what both of them offer, and Kanan I often leave for Leia, so that the stamina can be used over there. For Bounty Hunters and Evasion Down, I was using this Jabba squad. Now what you should note here with this Jabba squad is it's not all Hutt Cartel, so certain mechanics like starting off with a pre-taunt on Curzanton is not occurring. Zam Wessel is not a Hutt Cartel character, but she's how you get the evasion down with this sector, or one of the most efficient ways to do it, because Electro Gagos here gives an AoE evasion down. But you can also get evasion down with Curzanton on his basic, so I was using Curzanton's basic a lot during the battle and was always happy when he was being brought in to assist. And with Jabba being by far the best character that we were limiting ourselves to during Sector 5, those 2 feats were finished pretty early. Now with the Qui-Gons, Master Qui-Gon and Qui-Gon Jinn, I used 3 different squads and spread the stamina out between all 3 of these. Now we have a JMK version here with Padawan Obi-Wan, because that accomplishes both the Sector 5 feat and the global feat. Same thing you're seeing with JML here. JML though also with Obi-Wan Kenobi on his basic is able to apply evasion down. So what I was doing, since we only needed to win with those characters, is I was calling in Obi-Wan for the assists to apply that evasion down, because I still had a few more after we were done with the Jabba feats, and then the rest of these characters just needed to survive, which that was really only effective with higher stamina, because the Padawan and Obi-Wan and Master Qui-Gon were fairly vulnerable with this squad, but it worked once or twice. Then what I really liked was Padme. This was very effective. You can see here we have Pow, we have the Qui-Gons, and GK. GK was pretty important to keep the attacks off of Padawan, Obi-Wan. I tried some other versions, same deal with JMK, tried versions without GK because his stamina was depleting. I was putting Mace Windu in there, but Mace, it just wasn't working because his taunt-ish ability was not being triggered reliably enough. But these characters, they got down to like 50%, and then it became very unreliable for them to survive the battles. So it'll be something that we'll be wrapping up after stamina replenishes. And with our mini-boss, we'll talk about these, but we got Veers, final boss, Bane. This is not the Bane squad I used. This is the Bane squad I used. That one was the first one I attempted. It was kind of working. Bane would make it to the end, but it was really more of a timeout situation. I didn't really feel like I was making any progress. Sith Eternal Emperor was the way to go. It is not a 3-star win though. You lose Talon, but I liked having Talon in there for the stat boost, which added to survivability early on in the battle. And then you'll see in the footage, but I was using Baudelaire here to take out the other feats. At the mini-boss battle, we are doing General Veers to start. This takes a little bit of time. I'll talk through some of it. I don't know if we'll watch the whole thing because it does take a long time. So I would just want to eliminate Bane early. He's really the only threat here. The rest of these characters are a non-issue. So we use Moff Gideon for the mass assist, get a bunch of hits in, and then I take him out. Now the rest of this is fairly easy, but I do want to be a little bit careful because I don't want to lose Dark Trooper because I want to get 3 stars on the node. So now that the taunt is gone, we're attacking Sidious. Marking him again. We're AoEing once the taunt is back on Malak so we can make progress elsewhere. Another AoE eliminates Sidious. With the Amplify Agonies, those AoEs are doing a lot of damage. Taunts off, so we mass assist on Maul. Throw an Armor Shred on Malak just to eventually make our work with him easier. trigger the drain life. The stacking fervor is going to be making Dark Trooper more dangerous because he's assisting a lot. And now Maul's down. And we should have some mass assists off a cooldown. Yeah, and then with Malik, the rest of this is just taking it easy and then taking him out. And I think you get the idea. We're going to move on. Because now we're at 3 stacks. We finished this with 3 stars. Get a couple, yeah, we'll finish it like that. With our second attempt on the mid-boss, I went with light side Mandos. Now this isn't an option for everybody, obviously, but I went with this squad because of just the amount of mass assists. I think Leia Organa also would have crushed this. Characters that get around taunts or do have a bunch of mass assists are going to be very effective here. Part of the reason why I would have liked that blind side, because blind side would have helped out a ton as well. But you'll just see the ideas. What you want to do here is take out Bane as quickly as possible, just like we did with Veers. And Veers has those mass assists, which is what I believe made him so effective. So that's what we're recreating with this squad. Even JMK, I imagine JMK would crush this as well. But my JMK was low on stamina from working on the other feats. And here, you can just see this is way easier than with Veers. We're just kind of waltzing through it. Yeah, we don't even have Beskar onto Baudelaire yet. We did lose Paz though. Not a huge deal, we already got 3 stars, but something to keep in mind. Do an attack on Savage. I was saving the mass assist for Malik, but also I think we had fear on a couple guys, so I just held off. Try to get Savage first. Or at least get them out unfeared. But he's tanky. Okay. Finally get Beskar over onto Baudelaire. So now she'll be able to counter, and she is a powerful counter. And then mass assists onto Malik, take him out. And then same deal over here with Savage. And then boom. With the final boss, this was the squad I was using. We talked a little bit about it as we went through the squad overview, but we got tanks, we got Talon for a revive and the extra stats. And I like it because with the AoE, you can be getting around some of these taunts with the linked characters. Now this is another one that takes a while. Maybe I could have linked Luthen earlier. I kind of just went away from that strategy. I think it's something that I could have revisited. But it also just depended on when you have an opportunity to link the commando being gone. And I don't remember that happening too much on this attempt. I tried it on other attempts, but Luthen kept sticking around. So with this attempt, which won, we were just attacking other characters. I linked Chirrut first because Chirrut was adding he just adds the recovery, so he's adding a lot of survivability to the squad. You can see we're getting close to the ultimate. We lose Talon, we revive, or we recover. And we trip the ult. Now these guys do take a number of hits. So we increase cooldown with Bane. C is about to attack. We do want to use Bane's first special as much as you can because you want him to get as much stacks as Siphon. It makes Bane more of a threat. So I just really take my time here. I'm not trying to rush this, I just want to win. We've got Link still on the Trooper and on Chirrut. The Trooper, maybe it was just the node, but the Trooper felt really evasive. It was quite irritating. Shocked is also great on him. You can see we're going for this, the first special whenever we have an option for it. We get up to 12 stacks. We go with the AoE, and now we've knocked out the Trooper. We've knocked out Chirrut. Now we're down to 3. There's still a little bit of recovery with Saw around. Now, yeah, here is an opportunity where I could have linked Luthen and Katarn or somebody, but the thing is we can't take out Luthen while the Trooper's around, I believe. So it just felt like an ineffective way to go about things. Or maybe it's, I'd have to look at the kit again. That's what was in my head at least. Maybe it's just you can't target him while the Trooper's around, but in the moment, I just decided to go with the other characters. Now we AoE. Landing shock where we can, because that shock is really powerful. I also I'm trying to avoid taking out some of these guys, because I want the Link to stay on for when the ultimate goes off. Yeah, so we go back to linking. Now that Katarn's almost gone, I'm hoping an AoE from Bane will take him out, so I've linked Saw. Because they do have less recovery, it's not great, but they all take that hit. Now here, we do an AoE for more Siphon, but we didn't take anybody out. Now there's a dodge to deal with. And you can see why I liked Sith Eternal Emperor. It just was the way to go with this. And as soon as Saw goes down, the rest of this becomes a lot easier. He's someone that maybe I should have linked sooner. So we got Link trying to weaken Saw and land a shock. You can just see how much evasion is going on. Yeah, let's try to move an attack over on Luthen. He's got tenacity up, so the shock isn't landing. Link, we don't want to use the ultimate when characters are not linked. Yeah, we get that AoE, and you can see how long this took me. We're down to a minute. Now Saw's gone, now the Trooper, and now we can just focus on Luthen. I think in a future one, I will go after Luthen more aggressively, or maybe Saw more aggressively, see if that's more effective. With the final boss node, looks like the second attempt I did with Leia. I think I considered Bo for a moment, and I went for a Mon Mothma version. We get an extra character, we get an extra revive. But similar ideas, we want mass assists, we want to be able to ignore taunt. And that's what makes Leia very powerful here. Even though it is limiting this one to, at least this solution limits lower level players. But I also didn't hunt around looking for other solutions. I do imagine JMK and like GLs should do fairly well here, but this is also, I needed a non-Jedi counter, I believe. And so with this Rebel squad, we have no Jedi. Yeah, that's what was going on. Yeah, we needed a non-Jedi, non-Sith, non-Unaligned Force user counter. And that's what we get with this Rebel squad. It's why old Ben is not on it, why we don't have like another Jedi tank on it. We have a nice, strong GL level counter that doesn't rely on those Force users. And it's also something that's nice about a squad like Jabba, where there's no Force users. But you get a very powerful GL level squad that you can use. You can just see how quick work this made of it. I do want to highlight this counter. This is going to work for Sector 5 as well as Global Feats whenever you come across Inquisitors. Now in this case, we have Qui-Gon in here for the Sector 5 feat, but in other sectors, you don't have to use Qui-Gon. In Sector 1, just put in like a Mace Windu. He's going to work very well as well. And you can see this attempt is even with lower stamina. And Padme she's really great up against Inquisitors with all of their debuffs. Now, I got better at playing this as things went on. One of the things you'll see that I do here is I'll use Padme's first special early, and I would now do that second, because they take a lot of turns and they land a lot of debuffs, and I found that if I waited until after this barrage, it would be even easier because I would have more courage. But in this case, it's not a problem. We were still at like 70% stamina, but I was able to beat some in these Inquisitor squads with like 50% stamina when I made that adjustment to my play. Now you can see we have a bunch of courage, takes out Grand Inquisitor right away. And these are 3 stars, gear 11 on Pow and Master Qui-Gon. But under Padme, with the courage mechanics, it makes them pretty resilient. And I think we're using a lot of Amplify Agony on the feat, or on the Datadisks. And just very effective. So I would look out for Inquisitor nodes. Gungans work very well on the Datacron node. Now I was challenging myself to just use the Gungans because then you get the full functionality of the kit with the shield generator. You don't have to do this. You can throw in SLKR or Dash, put Dash with Zealous Ambition. It's going to crush, and because these characters don't need to function. But I think it's a little bit more fun to try some other things. And so with this, what matters here and why the stamina going too low is going to hurt is they're not going to be fast enough. Now you can see we start off with Boss Nass. He's throwing debuffs. We do have 2 Amplify Agony, so that's why a lot of damage is going on and why I'm focusing on a bunch of AoEs, swapping turns over to Tarpals to give Tarpals a chance to do some attacks. You can see just the massive amounts of AoE damage that are happening with Amplify Agonies just kind of walking through this. And there's no real chance of losing. Although when I attempted it with lower stamina, I still won, but I did lose the shield generator. which made things a little bit riskier. Had I not had already taken out Echo, probably would have lost, which is why I think you can only get down to like 80% before it ceases to function. We're going to take a look at another global feat. Once these guys are taken out. For the weird feat that gives you the title, I used the second Datacron node on Sector 1. This one against the first order characters. This worked very well. And swapping out to Dooku. The AoE ability, this one's good to know because it does give accuracy up if you wanted to do that feat. That's not a global feat, but as a note for the sector, this, I'm just trying to stun these characters as much as possible. Maybe you could do a different leader. I opted for Dooku because his at least is not dependent on faction. I think does Royal Guard does some stuff too that's interesting. Not a leader, but you can see just managing stuns so that the risk of being taken out is eliminated. Hux is the biggest threat. The rest of these characters don't matter. You can kind of ignore crew. I was hoping that the stun wasn't available. That's why I targeted that guy. But this is pretty much done. And no changes to Datadisks. But it's only 3 wins. I'll be back to this node to wrap this up. And shock from Dooku is going to be important to finishing off Kylo. Because he's a little bit more annoying than the others. That wraps up this experiment covering the Conquest, each sector, each day. Let me know what you guys think of this. We'll see if it returns for Conquest 16. I don't think this was the best Conquest to do this for. It was an easy Conquest. No one really needed advice on how to approach these feats. I still wanted to show how I approached it regardless, so you guys can see some more context for what I've been talking about. So we may have this return, but the interest was minimal. I think, though, had the Conquest been more difficult or more like some of our previous Conquests, this would have been a more useful exercise. So we'll see what happens with the next set of feats. But thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.